That's because you sinned. They're wrong. Probably. They're probably wrong. Why? You are born into an unfair world. The same way Job was, the same way I am. Which means life is unfair, but God is fair. Don't get the two mixed up. One more time. Life is unfair. God is fair. Don't get the two mixed up. Because I want you to remember this for the rest of your life, I'm going to say it one more time. Life is unfair. God is fair. Don't get the two mixed up. And there are too many people at Texas State who get it mixed up. When we suffer, we clench our fist, wave it at God, and say, it's your fault. No, it's not God's fault. God has created a world populated by people with a free will.
So why would he create a life for everyone? Why would he create a world that is unfair for the people that follow his word?
Good. Because when I put my faith in Christ, he does not put me in bubble wrap and protect me from the unfairness of life. When I put my faith in Christ, I still have to live in a world that's unfair, and often I get hurt, and I don't have bubble wrap around me because I believe in Jesus.
I definitely understand that, but why would he make?
Well, when he created the world was fair. Adam and Eve had
That's
a world
right.
that was fair. But whenever they took from the apple, they had to live in the world that was not. That's why they have to make.
Yeah, the fall.
You have to have bad and good to be able to make the choice to say, I'm going to do good things. I'm going to live for
If it wasn't a good or a bad, then it's like, to be honest, like if it wasn't a good or bad, this world would be shit. So it got to have a good and a bad.
I wasn't good at that. Just born with that.
Okay, but that's a fascinating point he made. Here's how I would express his point. God, I resent the fact that you gave us free will, because obviously free will has led to a lot of evil. Okay, but here you go. If God did not give us free will, I could not love him, I could not do good to him. Because to love him demands that I have a free will to choose to love him, and to do good for him means that I have a free choice to do good to him. If I have to give him money, it's not goodness, I just had to do it. But if I freely choose to give him money for his dinner, that is goodness. You see, so you take free will out of the equation, and you wipe out love, and you wipe out goodness. But obviously, when God created us with a free will, he took a limited risk. And the risk is that we would choose to do evil. But remember, there's coming a day of judgment when he will judge us for the evil that we've done. That's why we need his grace. That's what he offers through the death of Christ on a cross. His grace, his forgiveness. The Bible calls parents to love their children, and within the context of love, to discipline their children. Many people find that difficult. How do you love someone and discipline them in your family? You begin to grapple with the fact that we human beings are born with a sinful nature. Because we're born with a sinful nature, we need to be disciplined by mom and dad. Why? Sin destroys. Sin leads to death. Sin stinks. And the challenge is to teach a child not to sin, not to do wrong, but to do right. That God created us for that purpose, to do that which is right and good and true. And discipline within the context of real love is crucial in teaching a child, in coaching a child, in training a child to live a life of flourishing, because it's a life committed to goodness. Discipline, secondly, is important because discipline teaches a child how to respond in a healthy way to authority. I'll never forget my dad saying to me, Cliff, if you don't learn to respond to my authority, you're never going to learn to respond to the authority of God. Great point, Dad. Thank you for teaching me that. If I don't learn to respond to my Father's authority, it's going to be much harder for me to learn to respond to God's authority. A healthy human being is someone who knows how to respond to God's authority with humility, with love. And that is learned in the home in a beautiful way. Thirdly, it's important to discipline because it's important to teach our children that there are consequences to their decisions. When you and I communicate to our children clearly, Here is the line. Don't step over it. What we're trying to teach them when we discipline them is, you defied my authority, you stepped over the line, there are consequences, and here comes the discipline. We talked about it, it was clear, you chose to violate the authority, you chose to cross the line, here is the consequence. That's the way life is. There are consequences to our free decisions. Freedom does not mean there are no consequences. Freedom means you and I can choose what we want to do, but we will not escape the consequences of our decisions. A fourth reason that it's important to discipline our children is because if we don't, someone will. Either the school teacher or the principal or the police or the judge or the prison warden. Somebody will discipline our child. Guess what? You love your children far more than any of those options. I love my children far more than any of those options. That is why.
Hello, good evening, everybody. I pray you all are doing well. That is so true. You know what he was just talking about? Someone's going to discipline your child. If you don't discipline your child, someone is going to discipline your child. Police, the judge, you know.
Yeah.
Your child will get disciplined one way or another. So just want to say hello to, who do we have here? We got the Carters. We got Lorraine. Hey, Lorraine, how are you?
We only got one Carter.
Yeah. Usually the other one's right there with him. The Ramseys, Hilda and Harry, the Hartgroves, John and Mina. What's up, guys?
Hello.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us tonight. Pray everyone is doing well. So we are, and Grams. As we're gonna, before we begin, we're gonna kind of give time for everyone to kind of catch on. Hop on.
Get on
there. Yep. So again, we have an announcement. October 8th, not this Saturday, but next Saturday is the women's meeting. So the women will be having a meeting next Saturday on there.
You wouldn't remember, you don't want to know the long list of things that went through my mind when you said we're going to have, and then you kind of paused. And bing, 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 bing.
Another one is.
None of them made any sense, however.
Oh yeah, that's right. There is a concert today. I totally forgot about that concert.
Yeah.
Some of my family's at that concert. The younger one is here. Oh, Madison, that's right. Madison. Carters.
Howdy,
So Carters,
don't be rowdy.
Carters. So, other announcement, do we have anything else I'm missing? I'm thinking, I usually have Suzanne would tell me, like...
I know, she is so good at that, too.
So I guess that's it. October 8th for the women's thing. Also, Cliff Nichol.
The guy that was just up.
Yeah, I emailed him. I contacted his church he pastors, and they said, oh, he's traveling this week. So I tried contacting him in email. He hasn't responded back. Typical pastors.
That's the way they are.
So hopefully he gives the call back. I want to try to get him online. Like, hey,
yeah,
do like an interview with him, bring him online, kind of talk to him, talk about what made him tick, because he's been going out to universities for a very, very long time. I do have a few friends that I've gone evangelizing with out in the streets. If you are interested in checking it out, if this is something that motivates you or moves you to go out to the universities, there's a few friends of mine that's gone out to, we've preached at Super Bowls, championships, things like that, street preaching, and Mill Avenue, First Fridays, all those things.
Right.
But these guys, they go out there. So if you're interested and you want to go, hey, I want to go around and see what they're doing, and maybe be a part of that, please let me know. I know they just, let me see if I can pull up something with Matthew. Matthew Redondo is one of those guys, one of those friends, acquaintances of mine.
Yeah, I got it.
That they go out to ASU.
Thank you.
What's that? Yes, please. Water you. Let's see. Here we go.
Lizzie's taking care of us tonight. And
Yep. So they were out here last week. Actually, this past week. Matthew. Oh, there we go. Here we go. Excellent. So Matthew and Diego, these guys were out here preaching the gospel. And then Matt De Jesus is the guy I really know. Knows me. We've been friends for a long time. So you can see we have 23 mutual friends. Just we've known each other for a long time. We've been preaching out in the streets for a long time. But so here's just a couple pictures. This is at ASU. Does this look downtown, or does this look like campus, Tempe? Oh, it's a Tempe campus.
Yeah.
I see by the church here.
Yeah.
So this is the Tempe campus here.
Did Abby take these pictures for you?
No. This is just street preaching out there, talking to the kids as they're going around, passing out tracts. Really just preaching the gospel. So if you're interested to joining us, whatever you like to do, come on. I'll let you know. Next time they go out, they'll let me know. They usually kind of stay in touch and stuff like that. So if you are interested, really a great way to kind of see how they do. Cliff Nichol,
Okay.
he's been doing it. The guy that we watch a video on right before it begins.
Yeah, usually every Friday before we start.
Before we begin Friday and Wednesdays. He's been doing this for a long time. So goes out to the universities and speaks and stuff like that. So there are some very good preachers who go out to preach out in the streets. And then there are ones that are just I would not send anyone with. I don't even want to go out with them. Because there's a difference between let's reason, let's preach the gospel, let's tell you about Jesus and the love of God, and then there's people who are they're only there just to, what do you say, provoke the crowd,
right.
And stuff like that.
Well, and some of them tried to do that, and
yeah,
and I have never understood the logic behind that, but
yeah.
But at any rate,
so I mean, there's a time for that, and there's a place for that. I'm not going to judge what that time or place is. But praise God. And there's a time to do that. Like John the Baptist did that. John the Baptist.
he didn't mince words.
No, he didn't. But he waited for them. He waited. Does that look like I have a scratch on that thing?
It does at the moment.
Oh my goodness. That stinks. John the Baptist preached hardcore but they came to him.
Right.
But there was other times when John the Baptist would go to them too.
Yeah.
When he had to confront a certain situation.
He got him in trouble with Herod.
Yep. Yeah, with Herod.
Yep.
So, but it is what it is. So if you're interested in going out there to the streets, preaching the gospels, let us know on that. Okay. What's up, James? How are you? Haritas. Hi, guys. Yeah, you like my Merry Christmas shirt? It is October next week. October next week, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, man, you cannot have Christmas. Let me see, I'm doing wrong. You cannot have Christmas.
It's October, the day after
without Christ.
Yeah.
You cannot have Christmas without Christ. So it's one of the shirts that
something like that.
This is one of the shirts that I make on there. Can't have Christmas.
You can't read it upside down.
Yeah. So. All right.
Doesn't matter whether it's you or the shirt. You can't read it upside down.
I can't read it like when I'm looking at that. I have to be looking. Okay, there we go. So, all right. So today we are in 2 Samuel chapter 11. Right. I mean, they do have Christmas stuff up.
Christmas. Listen, Walmart has Halloween. They have Thanksgiving, and they have Christmas, all up right now.
Right now, huh?
Yep.
Crazy.
Not so much Thanksgiving, but there is some Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I did see a bunch of turkeys in there.
They're walking the floor, aren't they?
I'll tell you, the turkeys where I go, I think turkeys are at Lowe's. Anyone ever go to Lowe's? Man, those guys, they frustrate me. I go to Lowe's, I'm looking for something.
The customers or the people trying to help
the
them?
people. The people who work at Lowe's.
Okay.
Their customer service is so horrible. I think they missed the S and the T to their name, because that when you go to that place, man, you feel like, what is this place? I feel like this is the lowest of customer service. That's what we should call it, lowest customer service. So it would be low. So they just missed a T, right?
Yeah, it is just a T.
They just missed a T. The
Missed a
lowest,
T.
you know. Man, they're just, they just frustrate me. All right,
Apparently.
so speaking of
Hi,
frustration, yeah, hey Frank, how are you?
Hi, Salmons.
So speaking of frustration, I always, we're gonna get into the story of David and Bathsheba, and I always thought, you were going for lost, right? No, I know, right? No, it's lowest.
He doesn't know where he's going.
I don't know. Sometimes I don't have the GPSs. What to say? David. You know,
All right.
when we think about two men in the Bible that are probably mentioned the most when it comes down to being forgiven,
Yeah.
it is, the first one is David,
Okay.
and the second one is, give me a guess, Pastor Toby. He's a
in
New
the-
Testament guy.
In the New Testament?
Yeah.
Goodness.
First one's David for doing something so horrendous, and yet God forgives him. We're like, David, he committed adultery, he killed a man,
That's right.
da da da.
Now,
And then,
don't give away the story.
Yeah,
Some of these people haven't heard the story yet.
They should. And then in the New Testament, we talk about someone else in the New Testament that's did such a horrendous thing.
Oh, Paul, you mean?
Paul, right? Those two guys,
I
man.
didn't tell exactly where you were going there.
When I think about people in my life who bring back, it is Paul. That's right. Harlan got something. Woo! This man, Harlan, is very knowledgeable, man. He's got all this knowledge about things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I know. I've
So
talked to him.
now it's got to be about. I got to take that Bible. There should be like something for Matrix where you stick the Bible in your head, like what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And and then you just, I know the scriptures.
Yeah.
That would be good. So, but you're right,
wonder if that's what
Harlan.
they
It is Paul. Paul. So yeah, Paul is
Well,
another
actually,
one.
Paul's okay. Saul was the bad guy.
Yeah, Saul of Tarsus. But we talk about these guys, and it's when I think in my life how people bring up all the bad things I've done. Mr. Shellman, when he was a youth, he did this and this and this, and they bring back all the past.
Oh yeah.
And to me, they think that bringing up my past is like, it's just a witness of who God is in me and what He's done for me. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Knowing and knowing are two different things. Absolutely.
Yeah. One of them has quotes and the other one has little underlines.
Yes, and one of them is capitalized, and the other one is not.
All right. I don't know why we get so silly on here, but
You don't want to mess with Pastor Toby today because he's. Well, really, like last week too. It's all good. It's all good. It's a Friday night. People are probably like had either a long week or had a week.
I always feel like you could use a little extra entertainment.
Yeah, that's okay. It's all good.
Right.
So here we are in David and Bathsheba's story. David is.
Could I say something in regard to David?
Yeah,
and Paul?
sure, please.
If you were writing a book that kind of claimed to be all that you ever would need to know, if you were writing a book that was trying to sell people on doing things your way, and you claimed to be a good God, and you claimed to bless people that were good, and to deal with people who sin, why would you make David and Paul two of the top people in your Bible? I think a lot of people miss this point, and to me, it's a very powerful point, and that God uses everybody, and that just because David, we've already seen some places where David kind of messed up, but David's fixing to really mess up in a powerful way. A really straightforward way, and he does so in front of everybody. And yet God still chose him. And David's name is all over the Bible from the time he lived on. I mean, Jesus is called the Son of David.
Yeah, absolutely. Come
I
on
mean,
closer. That way people see what you see you.
But Jesus is called the Son of David, and you would think, okay, I'm going to make a document, a big document here that really says, how you should act and what you should do and who should be, and I'm going to show how that I bless those people that do the things that I say and that honor me and all of that. And yet, God in the Bible puts this story and another one or two about David. God puts Saul of Tarsus at the central part of the book of Acts, and then he allows that same gentleman, who wasn't a gentleman for quite some time. Oh, I'm sorry, who wasn't a gentleman for quite some time, write 2/3 of the New Testament. And so I think we need to understand, and Pastor Mike was actually just talking about that, about people that talk about, the fact, well, this was in your past, and this was who you were, and this is what you are, and this is what you'll always be. Well, that's hogwash. I mean, David pleased God. David was a man after God's own heart. Saul was a murderer of Christians, but he also was a man who preached to the Gentiles and brought the Gentiles, and who confronted Peter, and all of those things. So I think we have to look, when we see things like this in the Bible, they are very important, because it tells that God can choose whoever he chooses.
Yeah.
And he chooses people that don't go along with what we think he ought to have done. And he chooses people that do and say things that sometimes are not right.
Yeah.
But he's God. And he obviously knew what he was doing, because look at what David was able to do with his life. I mean, the Psalms is full of things that he wrote. And David was a man that pleased God, even though David was a man who made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you make a very sound point, and something that we've been saying for a long time and still confirm, even in the story of David. If the Bible was made up, if you're going to create a God or a God of Israel, if Yahweh was not really Yahweh and he was just made up, then you would put characters in your story that are flawless.
Yeah.
Like they are men and women of full integrity. They don't mess up.
Yeah.
I mean, if you are God and you're going to be choosing, if you're a made up God and you're going to be choosing someone like David, you definitely would not mention that he committed adultery and he murdered. You would not mention the Apostle Paul, how he was Saul and he killed Christians.
Yeah.
You would not mention how Moses sinned and hit the rock. You would not mention how Samson was such a lustful fool, but yet God used him.
Yep.
I mean, all the characters that you would see of God using would be like, and David, I am God.
And he spells it out exactly what happened.
Yeah.
He doesn't say, well, then David one day did something that was probably not the best idea, and then move on to another story.
Yeah.
But no, it's right here, and
Yep.
it's just blazoned all over the page.
Yeah.
And he doesn't dismiss him. He doesn't let him get by with it. He doesn't do any of that.
Yeah.
But it's right there, and yet David still comes out of it.
Yeah.
And he still is the servant of God, and he still is the one who leads us lots of times, even, as I said, in the Psalms, he leads us to God. And God loved him, and David loved God.
Yeah.
And you can look at a lot of things he did and say, well, this is kind of sketchy right here. And yes, it is, but God doesn't leave that out, because he's talking about real people who did real things. Some of them were good and some of them were bad.
Yeah.
And we don't need to cover this up. We don't need, as a matter of fact, I think it's good that we look at it.
Yes.
And look what
Amen.
God did.
Amen.
Even though David was a man after his own heart, even though David was the king, even though David was a good man in lots of other ways.
Yes.
Still, God dealt with him.
God, guys, what you guys are listening to right now, I feel real bad about a lot of the people who go to Harvest or are not listening to these Bible studies. They're not tuning in on Friday night or Wednesday night, or they're not watching them, on a regular basis, because there's so much more to understand in our faith and about our faith to grow. As we know, we are in Philippians chapter 1. And one of the things that the Apostle Paul talks about is believing and growing in love, knowledge, and in discernment. That these three things we're to grow in and to do these things. Well, that happens while we are just studying 2 Samuel. Pastor Toby is bringing up some fantastic points as we talk about these stories and we talk about how and why our faith is real and it is not fake. It is not made up. The scriptures are real. That's why we look at them and say that these are God's holy words. And these are God's men and women that he used, imperfect people. So he used them and he perfected them in his ways and in his truths.
Yes.
You
And
know?
we shouldn't be knocked down by what God is saying here. It shouldn't cause us to despair.
Yeah.
That he couldn't even keep David in control, so to
Yes.
speak.
Yes.
Because guess what? We're just like that.
Yes.
We're exactly like that.
Yes.
And God didn't give up on David, and God made something good come from David's life. And I think we should be given hope by knowing that people like David, people like the Apostle Paul, those people, they lived. They were real people. They did some things that were good and some things that were not so good. And God, by showing us their lives, shows us what we can do. And how we can escape the things.
And
that
why
we've done.
all this information is important, even the information we've been talking about, even though we haven't gotten into the story, it is important because there's a lot of voices out there. There's a lot of voices out there that tries to convince us that what we believe in is man-made.
Yeah.
It's not real.
Yes.
It's not Christian.
Right.
It's it's not whatever. It's just a man-made religion. There's not really a God. How can we believe that the Bible is real? There's all kinds of these voices out there. But folks, just like we're talking about today, the Bible is real and it is scriptural. It is historic. It is a historical document.
Right.
Historical document that can be confirmed through archaeological finds, through other outside historical resources that show that what we believe is true. And then on top of that, the scriptures, when it talks about the stories of David and others, it brings in important events that were happening that can be confirmed with outside resources.
Yeah.
Which make it like a true historical document. That this is something like saying, hey, at the time of Caesar Augustus, there was a census and Joseph and Mary went to Bethlehem. So if you were to go back and go, well, was there an actual census with Caesar Augustus? You can look back and say, oh yeah, there was. And at that time, who was the governor? Who was the magistrate? Who were these? I mean, these are all important documents. Even stories like we're talking about Philippi. Did Philippi exist? Absolutely. Like right now, I'm not sure you can even find Philippi. It's gone. The city's gone. But how can we know that there was a church in Philippi? Well, we go back and we see, people can go back and go, well, yeah, we do have documentation that there was a city called Philippi.
Or archaeological finds.
This was a city called Philippi. Now it's part of this province of
Sure.
Greece, etc. But yeah, there was a city named called Philippi. And you're talking about Paul writing to Philippi, and then it no longer exists. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years later, you grab the scriptures and you're like, oh, there must have been a city called Philippi. You go back and there it is. And you're like, wow. So it's not made up. Why would I make up? Why would they make up, the scriptures? Also, we go further. Why it's important. Like we were discussing the other day, I was talking to Brandon and Brandon Marks. And he says, yeah, I was talking to this guy, and he says, I used, what we say sometimes. He says, look, if Christianity or Judaism was a man-made religion, if the worship of Yahweh was man-made, why would any man require circumcision? There's no man. No man on earth is going to go, hey, you know what? I'm going to start a religion, and guess what? Circumcision is going to be part of it. And what else? And guess what? No pork. No pork. We're not going to eat pork.
No bacon.
No bacon. No bacon. No pork. No, this is not a man-made religion. This is God bringing, and so many other things that we think like, oh, these are great things to have, but God's like, nope, you can't have raw. You can't eat raw meat. You have to. It has to be well done. Everything has to be well done. No medium well. No medium. It's got to be all well done meat. So there's a lot of things.
Got to cut the blood out of it.
You know what, Deacon Carey, you would not have been a Jew. You would have been a total Gentile. Yeah. I'll tell you why. You love pork. I wouldn't say you love pork. You eat pork. Probably one of your favorites, bacon. And you like your steaks rare.
Hey, boy, that's
like bloody.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would have disqualified. You probably would have stayed in Egypt and said, "You guys go ahead. I'm gonna eat the pork and my raw meat. I'm gonna eat the pork and my raw meat over here. You guys, I'll see you guys at the other side." Complete and total Gentile, totally. And then your wife doesn't eat lamb. She doesn't. Scarlett does not eat lamb, and I'm thinking, dude, you guys would have been like left behind. Who could you imagine the Passover? We're gonna have Passover. What are we gonna have? Lamb. I'm not eating that lamb. What do you mean you're not eating that lamb? You have to eat that lamb. So. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into the Bible reading.
All right.
Okay, so we're going to get into the story of David, and I'm sorry, I don't know why my internet just suddenly, out of nowhere, just started acting up. It was doing well.
It liked what we were saying until then.
I know, right? All right, so let's see here.
What do we do?
I just want to check, make sure we're good here.
We're checking stuff right now.
So. Yeah, okay. That's weird. It just went like cuckoo and then that came back up. All right, so we should be back on track here. All right, so we are in 2 Samuel chapter 11. 2 Samuel chapter 11.
Yes, we are.
All right, Pastor Toby. We talked. Yeah, let's go ahead and read the story of Bathsheba. Yep.
And it came to pass after the year was expired, at the time when kings go forth to battle, that David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they destroyed the children of Ammon and besieged Rabbah. But David tarried still at Jerusalem, which is very out of the ordinary. And it came to pass at an eventide that David arose from off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. And David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? Then David sent messengers and took her, and she came in unto him, and he lay with her, for she was purified from her uncleanness, and she returned into her house. And the woman conceived, and sent and told David, and said, I am with child. And David sent to Joab, saying, should I go on? We can talk. We can stop right there. I don't care.
We can stop right there. So let's start with the very first part of this here. We know that when it came to pass, after the year was expired, at the time when kings go forth to battle. When kings go forth to battle. What do we have in this case here? David decides, I'm not going. Okay? What happens to David? At the time when kings go to battle, that David sent Joab, his servant, with him. But David tarried still in what? Jerusalem. Okay.
Which kind of makes that sound like that whoever's writing this story is saying, well, David really should have gone to battle, because it was the time when kings go forth to battle. David was a man who apparently was quite a soldier himself and able to carry his own weight in a battle. And yet he didn't go, and he tarried at Jerusalem. So even at the very beginning here, we're kind of being told that something was a little out of kilter. Something was not quite the way it should be. And that David maybe had made the wrong decision in staying behind and tarrying.
Absolutely. And I think this is
a good way to look at it.
Yeah, it is. And this is where it usually happens. When we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing.
Amen.
When we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, It's so easy to fall into something that you shouldn't be doing.
Right.
If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you'll find that you will avoid things that you shouldn't be doing, and you're doing. Does that make sense? Okay.
I don't know.
Something like that.
There's
Somewhere
some
like that. I'm
logic.
sure you guys all understand. And idle mind is a workshop of the devil.
Yeah.
And when people, I can't tell you, I've talked to
And
my
that's
daughters.
not in the Bible,
No,
but
it's
there's
not.
lots of illustrations
Yes,
of it.
I've talked to my daughters many times, and the other day I shared a story with them. I said to them, look at this. This is so sad. This girl, she just turned 21 years old. She went out with her friends to celebrate her 21-year-old birthday, 21, with her friends, and I guess they went bar hopping or whatever.
Right.
No real thing of that, but they went somewhere. They drank whatever, and she was in her car at a what do you call it? Train track.
Okay.
Stopped at the train track, for the train or whatever.
Right.
At 2:20 in the morning. At 2:20 in the morning. On a bad side of town.
Right.
It was a bad side of town, and someone came and killed her. They don't know who did it. They don't know why, but she died. Okay. Her dad he had to fly over, to bury his daughter. But I think to myself, I looked at my kids. I said, "Look at this. See, I mean, sometimes we think like this is innocent, like it's innocent fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, oh, it's just innocent. I
Right.
mean, all we're doing is just I'm with some friends. 21 years old. I'm having a drink or two, and that's it. And and then I said to them, it's not. I'm not saying that what she did was evil or anything, but she was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
But if she was a Christian, I mean, I'm not saying she wasn't, and I'm not saying because Christians do things too, but she should have been home at like 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning. Or
Sure.
she shouldn't have been driving alone at 2:20 in the
No.
morning on the wrong side of town.
No.
She shouldn't have been, like her father is now, all these questions are going on in his mind. What is
Sure.
my daughter doing there? What happened? Why did she,
Right.
why was she there? Where was her friends?
Right.
Why did they leave her alone? And
Yeah.
what happened? What kind of people?
I didn't understand that.
What kind of people was she around? And all these things that are left. And I say to my kids, you got to understand just the simple little things that you think, oh, they're harmful, can come back and bite you.
Yes.
They come back and bite you. David thought, I'm going to send Job. I'm just going to kick back at Jerusalem. I'm going to let Job do the work. I'm not going to go.
Right.
I've also said things like going to church on Sunday morning. As some of you know, I'm a fisherman. I'm an angler. I love to fish. Okay, I love to fish. I'm out on the boat, or I'm fishing at the lake or the ponds or whatever it is, and I hear stories about people dying at the lake. Okay, Lake Pleasant,
Right.
other lakes. Oh, Sunday afternoon there was a huge tragedy. Sunday morning, blah blah blah, they died or whatever. And I think to myself, I wonder now, if I'm not judging them, I'm just saying, I wonder if those people would have been at church that morning. If they would have said, we're not going to go, we're going to go to church on Sunday morning, would they have been better off? Of course, yeah. And I'm not saying that they probably didn't go to church Saturday night, or they're Christians that have
Right.
Saturday night service, and then they went Sunday morning. I'm not judging them.
Right.
I don't want to be in that place. But these are just little things that we think, oh, well, they're harmless. They're harmless. But in reality, they're not harmless.
Right.
Because they put us in the wrong place at the wrong time. And if you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, the chances of things going wrong are pretty good.
Yeah.
So let me repeat that again. If you're at the wrong place at the wrong time, the chances of things going wrong are pretty good.
Right.
But if you're at the right place at the right time, then the chances of getting things right are pretty good. And the chances of things going wrong are slim. Okay, because you're at the right place at the right time. You're at church, or you're at Bible study, or you're praying, or you're seeking God, and yeah, you're not mixed up. You're not following these wrong people. This wrong, you're at the right place at the right time. Get you the right things. Wrong place, wrong time. Get you wrong things. Okay, now. Can you do right and be at the wrong place at the wrong time? Sure, it happens. I mean, if you're going to be flying, I've heard Christians on their way, missionaries, they're heading over to preach the gospel, and they get in a car accident, they all die. Okay?
Their plane goes down. Whatever.
Their plane goes down. Things happen.
Yeah.
Okay? But they're doing right at the right time. So things go wrong, but the chances of things going wrong when you're at the wrong place at the wrong time, doing wrong, are pretty good.
Yeah.
Are pretty good.
Right.
And this is David is at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
He's up there. He's in the evening. He's coming out there.
Probably couldn't sleep.
Couldn't sleep or whatever. Gets up on the roof.
Which maybe he does. Maybe that's his normal pattern of life.
Gets up. Yep.
When he's thinking, and maybe he's worried about something.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where he goes. I mean, people do that. Walking sometimes helps.
Yeah. Gets on the roof. As he's up on the roof, he looks over and he sees this woman washing herself. Now, I've always had questions on this story. I've always had issues with this story, and let me tell you why.
Well, when you get to heaven, ask David. Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to ask David. I want to ask Bathsheba.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Because what I want to know is, you live by the king's house. And David it's not like, oh, I have a roof. Let me go check out this roof. I mean, he's evening time. He rose out of his bed at night. He's sleeping. Gets up at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is, 12 o'clock. He's up on the roof. And there's this lady right there that lives right there. And she's taking a bath, washing herself. And I'm thinking to myself, did she set up David? Like, was this a setup? Like, what's going on here? Like, was she waiting for David to get up on the roof? Then she went out there and saw, oh, there's David. I'm going to wash myself, like, show myself. Did she seduce him? I mean, because, like, she lives, is this like the first time she ever took a bath? Her husband, Uriah the Hittite, is at war.
Right.
Is this the first time
we'll find out later.
Yeah, I mean, is this the first time she ever decided to take a shower in the open? I'm just like, David, you've lived next to Uriah the Hittite. Uriah the Hittite lived next to him for a long time. These are questions I ask. How many times has she been out? I mean, did she now, because her husband is gone, decided, hey, I'm going to seduce? These are all questions like, there's got to be.
There's no answers to those.
There's got to be, like, something. I mean, and then it couldn't have been 1 or 2 in the morning. It had to be while it was still somewhat light out. Yet maybe, yeah or no. Well, I mean, it says he rose off his bed and walked. It was evening tide, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we do that. It's evening tide, and he rose off his bed. So we know that. Okay, we got that type of thing. Okay, so he saw the woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful. Right? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, she's taking a bath in the evening, and